He strutted into my boardroom. My own son, Daniel. Thinking he'd pulled off the ultimate business betrayal. His entrance sliced through the tension like a hot knife through butter. Head held high, a disturbingly effortless grin stretched across his face. He seemed oblivious to the silent daggers I was aiming his way. A wave of that cloying cologne, citrus and something unsettlingly metallic, permeated the air. Another flag planted in my territory. His greeting to the board members was far too familiar, a slap in the face considering the stakes. As if Graves Industries wasn't teetering on the precipice. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comment section where you are listening from. My name is Edward Graves. I'm 63 years old. My company. My life's work. 37 years bled into balance sheets, hammered into innovation, and distilled into this moment, this charade within these walls. He took his seat, my seat, with an infuriating lack of self-consciousness, adjusting the fabric of that ridiculously priced suit likely purchased with my capital. Flashing that smile again, this time at Sarah from marketing. The poor woman flushed crimson. Couldn't she see the shark beneath the tailored cashmere? Or was she simply another moth drawn to the glittering flame of power? A shiver began in my extremities, a subtle tremor that quickly escalated, snaking up my arms, constricting my chest like a vice. I crushed my hands into fists beneath the mahogany, driving my nails into my skin, focusing on the exquisite discomfort to tether myself to reality. Maintain control, Edward. Graves Industries hadn't sprung from thin air. A modest grant, a crumbling warehouse, and an idea dismissed as lunacy, that was all it took. I'd poured every fragment of my being into the venture, foregoing sleep, sacrificing connections, perhaps even a piece of my soul, to nurture it, to cultivate its growth, to transform it into the titan it had become. I recalled the lean years, the endless nights illuminated by spreadsheet glows, the relentless rejections, the ever-present dread of failure, of utter ruin. Yet, I had endured. I had triumphed. And now, my son, the child I had brought into this world, the protégé I had cultivated, was attempting to snatch it all away. With the collaboration of her. My gaze drifted to Eleanor, my CFO. My Eleanor. 3 decades she'd been my confidant, my right hand, my most trusted ally. Or so I foolishly believed. Her betrayal cut far deeper than any scheme Daniel could have masterminded. He was impetuous, rash, easily swayed. But Eleanor. Eleanor was scrupulous, calculating, dependable. At least, that was the facade. She sat beside Daniel, her expression a perfect blank canvas. No trace of guilt, no flicker of regret. Only that practiced mask of professional detachment. The one she donned when delivering layoffs, when crushing careers. But this transcended mere business. This was intensely personal. This was a dagger to the heart. The tremor amplified. My vision tunneled. The room contracted, the faces of the board members dissolving into a blurry tableau of shapes. Their hushed voices morphed into a distant drone. He thinks he's conquered. He believes he's outmaneuvered me. The audacity of youth, the misplaced conviction of privilege. He underestimates the depths of my resolve. He fails to grasp the extremes I will embrace to safeguard what is rightfully mine. He perceives the surface, the polished veneer, the aging patriarch. He fails to recognize the steel core beneath, the accumulated wisdom, the painstakingly devised strategy. I had permitted him his illusions of dominance. I had observed his machinations, watched him weave his intricate deception, all the while stockpiling my own arsenal, orchestrating my counterstrike. Let him relish his moment. Let him luxuriate in his imagined victory. The ultimate reversal will be all the more satisfying. A memory of my father, unsolicited, resurfaced. A rigid, unforgiving man, he instilled in me the virtues of diligence, the importance of unwavering allegiance, the absolute ruthlessness required to prevail in commerce. Never place your trust in anyone, Edward, he had cautioned, his voice raspy with age. Least of all family. I had dismissed his cynicism as the ramblings of a senile old man. Now, I understood. Now, I embraced it fully. The tremor had dissipated, supplanted by an icy, unyielding determination. The incandescent rage that had threatened to overwhelm me had been channeled, refined into a laser-like focus. I would not permit them to succeed. I would not allow them to obliterate my creation. I would wage war against them, with every resource at my disposal, until my final breath. And when the smoke cleared, I would be the one remaining. Daniel cleared his throat, preparing to address the room. The smug smile still etched on his face. He had absolutely no comprehension of what was about to unfold. Let the games commence. Whispers and lunches. The chime of silver against fine china, once a comforting harmony, now echoed as the prelude to a treacherous opera. It began with whispers, like a slow-growing malignancy, easily ignored at first. Lunches at the club. Just a father and son, ostensibly connecting. So, Daniel would begin, his voice carefully modulated to suggest mere curiosity. Eleanor shared the Q3's impressive growth, no doubt. Still, he'd pause, watching the condensation bead on his iced tea. Is that new R&D push truly the wisest stewardship of shareholder capital? It feels like a leap of faith. I indulged him. He was family. And honestly, the queries were legitimate. What father doesn't want an engaged heir? Thus, I'd delve into the complexities of the research, its potential for future growth, the carefully assessed risks. I'd articulate the grand design, the meticulous planning that underpinned every move at Graves Industries. He'd nod, affecting comprehension. I see. You know best. Yet the inquiries persisted, subtly morphing, boring deeper into the core. That Omnicorp deal seemed generous towards them, doesn't it? Are we positive we secured the optimal terms? Or, Eleanor mentioned some marketing adjustments. Will that impact brand perception? Just thinking of the bottom line, naturally. Each question, a tiny sting. Irritating, yet dismissible. I chalked it up to youthful zeal, a drive to prove worth. A swell of pride even flickered within. He was finally taking ownership. The lunches grew more frequent. The questions, more pointed. He began bringing printed documents, highlighted in precise yellow strokes. Just trying to grasp the full context, Dad. The total picture. He'd slide them across the table, their sharp creases hinting at something amiss. Patiently, I would deconstruct the data, elucidating the subtleties, the strategies at play. I'd correct his misinterpretations, challenge his underlying assumptions. He'd listen, his eyes locked on mine, seemingly absorbing every syllable. Or so I believed. One afternoon, over an uninspired chicken salad, he posed, Dad, what if something were to happen to you? Is there a solid succession strategy? What about our investors? Are we prepared for all possibilities? The query lingered, the clatter of utensils suddenly a cacophony. I brushed it off with a dismissive wave. Don't be so dramatic, Daniel. I have no plans of departing anytime soon. I forced a laugh, but the seed of apprehension had taken root. In hindsight, the truth is glaring. The subtle jabs, the relentless questioning, the counterfeit concern. It was a meticulously crafted scheme, designed to erode my influence, to plant seeds of distrust. He was constructing a case, layer by calculated layer, portraying me as unfit to lead. And I, blinded by paternal affection and years of implicit faith, permitted the construction. I even aided him. I addressed his doubts, I defended my choices, I handed him the very instruments of my downfall. The taste of that chicken salad now rises in my throat, metallic and vile. The remembrance of Daniel's earnest facade, deceptively innocent, sears like a brand. I should have perceived it. I should have discerned the glimmer of naked ambition in his gaze, the craving for dominion that mirrored, yet twisted, my own. But I failed to. And that was my failing. A failing I intend to remedy. The CFO's unease. The server room's drone, once a soothing backdrop, now grated on my nerves, a sonic reflection of the disquiet churning within. For weeks, Sarah Jenkins, my unflappable CFO, had been off-kilter. At first, it was merely a subtle shift, a deadline skirted, an excuse murmured. Lately, however, the changes had become pronounced. Through my office's glass partition, I observed her bathed in the fading sunlight, the silver threads in her auburn hair gleaming. She was stooped over her workstation, brow deeply creased, but her fingers lay motionless on the keyboard. Absent, adrift, light years from ledgers and fiscal reports. Sarah had been with me for 27 years, a tenure marked by absolute fidelity, meticulousness, and an uncanny instinct for detecting financial impropriety before it blossomed. My anchor, the skilled pilot steering Graves Industries' financial course. Now, a complete enigma. Her phone chirped. She snatched it up, her posture instantly rigid. "Jenkins," she answered, her tone clipped, unusually husky. The other end remained a mystery, but her replies were curt, evasive. "Yes. Understood. I'll see. Goodbye." She severed the connection, pivoting in her chair to face the window, conspicuously avoiding my gaze. The fluorescent lights etched the worry lines around her eyes into deep canyons. She appeared aged, diminished. Rising, the leather of my chair emitted a soft groan. "Sarah," I began, my voice measured. She flinched, startled. "Edward. Didn't realize you were there." Her eyes darted around the room, never quite meeting mine. "Everything all right?" I inquired, leaning against the doorframe. "Fine, perfectly fine," she responded a beat too quickly. "Just catching up on some loose ends." I nodded toward the pristine spreadsheet displayed on her monitor. "Intriguing." A forced chuckle escaped her lips, a sound thin and unnatural. "End of quarter scramble." The usual. I was well aware of the usual. And I also knew Sarah Jenkins never deferred tasks. A planner, an architect of order, a woman who thrived on predictability. This felt like a calculated act. Later, as I was locking up, I noticed a faint light emanating from beneath her office door. Pausing, I strained my ears. A muffled murmur reached me, her words indistinguishable. I continued on, my footsteps heavy on the carpet, yet the image of her huddled in the gloom, whispering into her phone, remained etched in my memory. The following morning, I arrived before sunrise, hoping to intercept Sarah. Her vehicle was already parked. I discovered her in the break room, engrossed in conversation with Daniel. They stood intimately close, heads inclined, their voices hushed. Daniel's hand rested on her forearm, a gesture that felt both familiar and inappropriate. As I stepped inside, they sprang apart, faces flushed. "Dad," Daniel greeted, his voice laced with excessive cheerfulness. "Just getting Sarah's input on the revamped marketing strategy." Sarah concurred, her gaze fixed on the linoleum. "Yes, Edward." Daniel was just sharing some perspectives. The atmosphere crackled with unspoken words, with concealed truths and outright falsehoods. I shifted my gaze from Daniel's overly bright smile to Sarah's downcast eyes, and the unease festering within transformed into a cold, unyielding knot of premonition. Something was profoundly amiss. And I feared I grasped its nature. The sting of Daniel's betrayal, that sharp, sickening knowledge that my own flesh and blood was attempting to undermine me, was now amplified by a yet more unsettling revelation, the shattering of trust in a confidant. A person to whom I had surrendered my livelihood. The mental cogs began to whir. If Daniel was implicated, and Sarah was behaving erratically, then their marketing strategy was a mere smokescreen. It was something far more insidious. Something perilous. Something I was determined to expose. The misplaced email. The office lights buzzed overhead, a jarring accompaniment to the heavy quiet of the late hour. Sleep felt like a distant memory, a luxury forfeited to the gnawing anxiety churning within me. Sarah. Daniel. Secret rendezvous. Whispered conversations. My own flesh and blood, plotting against me. A grotesque echo of familial tragedy. I needed undeniable proof, and intuition pointed me to one place. Daniel lacked subtlety, a trait he'd always possessed. Impulsive and transparent, his schemes were rarely well concealed. I recalled his computer password, a simplistic blend of his birth date and a fleeting high school sports fixation. Years since I'd last used it, yet a hunch insisted it remained unchanged. A tremor ran through my fingers as I typed. The monitor flared to life, revealing a digital landscape of abandoned video game projects and financial charts he clearly didn't grasp. I navigated to his email, a chaotic repository of unread missives and promotional debris. Then, I spotted it. An unsent draft, the subject stark, Project Phoenix, final draft. A chill snaked down my spine. Phoenix. The very code name Sarah had uttered that night in the parking structure, her voice a bare whisper. My pulse quickened as I opened it. The recipient, Sarah. A single attachment lay within, Phoenix Plan. Docs. Each word hit like a physical blow. The document detailed a meticulously crafted blueprint for a hostile takeover of Graves Industries. Daniel, presented as the public face, the visionary, to usher in a new era. And Sarah, the architect, the financial puppeteer, the one who had masterminded my ruin. Page after page confirmed my deepest fears. Projections, charts, data visualizations, all meticulously designed to showcase Graves Industries' alleged underperformance, ripe for new leadership. Sarah's signature financial acumen, perverted and weaponized against me. One section outlined the acquisition of pivotal shares, the strategic manipulation of stock values, the leveraging of debt to force my capitulation. It was merciless, deliberate, designed to strip me bare of everything I'd built. The final page unveiled a contingency strategy, detailing the legal maneuvers planned to deflect any potential challenges. There it was, laid bare, references to stipulations within Sarah's employment agreement, clauses I myself had sanctioned, years ago, in a moment of blind trust, designed to shackle me, preventing any meaningful resistance. The air hung thick, oppressive. 30 years. 30 years of implicit trust in Sarah. 30 years of loyalty, dedication, camaraderie, all a carefully constructed illusion. And Daniel, my son, seduced by avarice and ambition, willing to sell his own father for a taste of power. A wave of nausea crested within me. It wasn't merely the betrayal, but the sheer gall of it all. The meticulous planning. The cold, calculated efficiency with which they had orchestrated my downfall. I printed the email, the document, every shred of digital evidence I could unearth. I felt strangely disassociated, as though observing another soul enacting these steps, another heart enduring this unimaginable agony. As the printer whirred, delivering its incriminating output, a new sensation bloomed within me. Not despair. Not grief. Something colder, more acute. Rage. They sought a war. They would receive one. And they would learn, too late, that crossing Edward Graves was a fatal miscalculation. The rules had shifted. And I was prepared to fight dirty. The chess game begins. The weight of the folder, Project Phoenix, pressed into my gut, a physical manifestation of the betrayal. I could storm into Daniel's office, Sarah's too, and unleash the fury that simmered within. But that would be unsatisfying. Impulsive. Amateurs played checkers, I was about to play chess. The rage didn't dissipate, it simply cooled. Hardened. It became a diamond-edged resolve. They wanted a war. Fine. They would get one. But they wouldn't see it coming. They thought they were dealing with a doddering old fool, blind to their machinations. I would let them believe it. I closed the folder, the snap echoing in the sudden silence of my study. My first act was to appear utterly unchanged. Business as usual. No hint of suspicion, no flicker of anger in my eyes. It would be a performance worthy of an Oscar. The next morning, I walked into the office, whistling a tune that hadn't crossed my lips in years. The surprise on Daniel's face was almost comical. He stammered a greeting, his eyes darting nervously. "Morning, Dad. You're cheerful. Why shouldn't I be, son?" I clapped him on the shoulder, a gesture that felt like pressing a hot iron to my palm. "Another day, another dollar. How's that Johnson account coming along?" He launched into a detailed, fabricated update, riddled with half-truths and outright lies. I listened patiently, nodding occasionally, offering a few seemingly innocuous suggestions. The entire time, I was dissecting his every word, every micro-expression. He was sweating, I noticed, a thin sheen on his forehead despite the air conditioning. Sarah was next. Her smile was wide, too wide, reaching her eyes but not touching them. "Edward. Wonderful to see you so energetic." "Energetic is my middle name, Sarah." I boomed, louder than necessary. "Say, could you pull the contracts for the Henderson deal? I want to refresh my memory." Henderson. A deal she knew was rock solid, finalized months ago. It was a test, a small one, to see if she would flinch. She didn't. Years of practice, no doubt. Back in my office, I summoned my head of legal, a sharp, discreet woman named Eleanor Vance. I trusted Eleanor implicitly, she had been with Graves Industries almost as long as Sarah. I closed the door, lowered my voice. "Eleanor, I need you to find something. Anything. On Daniel and Sarah." Discreetly. No paper trail. Eleanor's eyebrows rose slightly, but she didn't ask questions. "Understood, Edward. Consider it done." I spent the rest of the day immersed in paperwork, attending meetings, and making phone calls, all while subtly probing, testing the waters. I needed to know the extent of their reach, who else was involved. The takeover was meticulously planned, which meant a network, a web of complicity. That evening, alone in my study, I opened a locked drawer and pulled out a leather-bound journal. Its pages were filled with my father's sprawling handwriting, his thoughts, his warnings. He had never trusted family in business. "Blood is thicker than water, Edward," he had written, "but business is a shark tank. Never forget that." I dismissed his cynicism as the ramblings of an old man. Now, his words echoed with chilling clarity. I opened a new page and began to write. My own plan, a counter-strategy. Operation Checkmate. The chess game had begun. And I intended to win. My first move was a simple one: grant Daniel more responsibility, more authority. Give him enough rope to hang himself. And Sarah? Let her think she was in control, pulling the strings. I would watch, I would wait, and when the time was right, I would strike. Not with anger, but with the cold, calculated precision of a man who had nothing left to lose. Nodding to disaster. The mahogany felt like chilled stone beneath my fingers. Gleaming, costly, soon to be worth less than the sawdust it would become. Daniel, ruddy with the hubris only unearned power can bestow, held court. His presentation, a blizzard of corporate jargon and fantastical predictions, flashed on the screen: synergy, disruptive innovation, metaverse integration. Every slide was a hammer blow to Graves Industries, and he swung with the fervor of the ignorant. And Project Chimera, Daniel declared, gesturing to a gaudy rendering of a virtual shopping experience, will unlock a completely virgin market. Forget antiquated storefronts, Dad. This is the inevitable. He turned to me, expectant. I offered a slow, measured inclination of my head. Remarkable, Daniel. Truly remarkable. The compliment tasted like lie. Sarah, perched at his side like a raptor observing its prey, echoed his smug expression. Her gaze, normally laser-focused, held a flicker of pity. No. Scorn, more likely. She still hadn't grasped the extent of my knowledge. Around the table, the other directors, veterans who had forged Graves Industries alongside me, shifted uncomfortably. I saw the unasked questions swirling in their eyes, the silent anxieties regarding Daniel's profligacy and the course he was charting. They yearned for me to intervene, to bring him to heel. I remained mute, a monument of granite. Let them observe. Let them witness the unraveling. Let them comprehend the price of misplaced faith. The allocation for Project Chimera is considerable, Daniel pressed on, oblivious to the palpable unease. He quoted a sum that sent a jolt through me, an amount that could have seeded 3 sound, lucrative ventures. But the yield will be astronomical. Astronomical, I echoed, my tone devoid of inflection. Indeed. I sanctioned every extravagant expense. Every hair-brained marketing stunt. Every pointless acquisition. I signed the authorizations with unwavering composure, the specter of my father's cautionary words haunting me, family and business, Edward. A perilous concoction. How right he had been. Weeks morphed into months. The corporation, once a finely tuned engine, began to falter and stall. Notices of redundancy were issued. Long-range initiatives were shelved. The share price, once a benchmark of success, embarked on a slow, agonizing descent. I observed it all from my sanctuary, a detached spectator. The reports accumulated on my desk, flagging revenues, unmet quotas, ballooning liabilities. Each crimson figure was a small victory, confirmation that my scheme was unfolding as intended. One afternoon, I discovered Daniel pacing frantically outside my door. His tie hung askew, his hair a mess. He looked afraid. "Dad, a moment." I ushered him inside. He collapsed into a chair, the bravado evaporated. "Project Chimera, it's not progressing as anticipated. Isn't it?" I mustered a semblance of surprise. "That's unfortunate. We're hemorrhaging cash, Dad. We require additional funding." I was contemplating another investment tranche. I settled back in my chair, scrutinizing him. He was desperate, grasping at the fragments of his shattered ambition. "And what leads you to believe anyone would throw good money after bad, Daniel?" He faltered, grasping for a response. He was clueless, utterly unaware of the actual situation. He was out of his depth, drowning in debt and disastrous choices. "We just require a little more leeway, Dad." "Just a little more," I smiled, a frigid, mirthless smile. "Leeway, Daniel. Leeway is the one thing you no longer possess. The altered contracts." Sarah was getting sloppy. The furtive glances, the hushed phone calls taken in the supply closet, the way she jumped when I entered a room, it was all amateur hour. Today, it was the digital files she was supposedly retrieving for the Q3 reports. Instead of copying them to her drive, I saw her emailing them. Daniel, no doubt, eager to dissect my strategy, which at this point was akin to steering a ship directly toward an iceberg. "Everything all right, Sarah?" I asked, my voice deliberately casual. She nearly dropped the drive. "Oh. Mr. Graves. Just getting those files you asked for." Her hand trembled slightly as she plugged the drive into her computer. "Right. The Q3 reports. Essential reading." I smiled, a predatory glint I hoped she missed. "Daniel was asking about them earlier. Said he needed to familiarize himself." Her eyes flickered. "He's very involved." "Indeed." I left her to her charade, the metallic tang of anticipation coating my tongue. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home, I descended to the records room. The air hung thick with the scent of aged paper and dust, the silence broken only by the hum of the ventilation system. This was where the real work happened. Not the boardrooms, not the executive lunches, but here, amongst the ghosts of deals past. I bypassed the digital archives, heading straight for the physical copies of the contracts. Daniel, in his arrogance, thought he'd accounted for everything. He'd focused on the digital realm, the emails, the server logs. He hadn't considered the archaic, the tangible. My advantage. The key contracts, the ones pertaining to Project Chimera, were tucked away in a mislabeled file from 2012. I pulled them out, laying them on the large mahogany table. The paper felt substantial beneath my fingers, each clause a weapon I was now sharpening. My alterations were subtle, almost imperceptible to the untrained eye. A misplaced comma here, a changed and to or there. A carefully worded addendum, initialed by me, of course, that essentially nullified Daniel's authority over specific financial decisions related to the project. Each change was small, plausible, easily explained away as a clerical error, until they were presented together, in court. They formed a net, a legal trap woven with meticulous care. I worked for hours, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. My vision blurred, my back ached, but I pressed on. This wasn't just about reclaiming my company, it was about making them understand the depth of their betrayal. About showing them the consequences of underestimating Edward Graves. Daniel thought he was playing chess. He was playing checkers, and I had just moved the board. The final touch was the most satisfying. A handwritten note, ostensibly from Daniel, requesting a minor adjustment to the profit-sharing agreement, shifting a significant percentage back to Graves Industries in the event of project failure. I forged his signature with practiced ease. It was a thing of beauty, a perfect imitation, a damning piece of evidence. I carefully replaced the contracts, ensuring the file was exactly as I'd found it. No alarms, no suspicion. Just a ticking time bomb waiting to detonate. As I locked the records room, I imagined Daniel, flushed with success, poring over those same contracts, oblivious to the carefully concealed daggers hidden within. He was so close to the finish line, so blinded by greed, he couldn't see the cliff looming ahead. And I, his loving father, was about to give him a gentle nudge. The heartbroken father. The press conference was Daniel's idea of a grand unveiling. He stood at the podium, radiating manufactured confidence, his tailored suit too tight across the shoulders, his smile a touch too wide. The Graves Industries logo loomed behind him, a silent testament to the empire I'd built, the legacy he was so eager to claim. Today, Daniel began, his voice booming through the microphones, marks a new era for Graves Industries. An era of innovation, of dynamic growth, of fresh leadership. I sat in the front row, a study in paternal disappointment. My shoulders slumped. My gaze, carefully practiced, drifted towards the floor. The cameras loved it. I could practically hear the headlines forming: Father abdicates, son ascends, Graves Industries, a generational shift. Let them believe it. Let them all believe it. He spoke of restructuring, of streamlining, of bold new initiatives, buzzwords that dripped with the arrogance of someone who hadn't earned his place. Sarah, standing discreetly to the side, offered him a small, almost imperceptible nod of encouragement. My stomach churned, a bitter cocktail of anger and betrayal. The question period was a carefully orchestrated dance. Pre-approved journalists lobbed softballs, allowing Daniel to showcase his non-existent vision. I remained silent, a broken man watching his life's work slip away. Finally, the moment arrived. A reporter, planted by my loyal friend at the Financial Gazette, asked the pivotal question, "Mr. Graves, what role will your father be playing in this new Graves Industries?" Daniel puffed out his chest. "My father," he said, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, "has decided to step down. He feels it's time to pass the torch. He's earned it." He turned towards me, offering a thin, almost pitying smile. "Dad?" I rose slowly, deliberately. The cameras flashed, blinding me momentarily. I cleared my throat, my voice thick with forced emotion. It's true, I said, my voice cracking just so. It's time. Daniel is. Daniel is a bright young man, full of ideas. I've watched him grow, watched him learn. I paused, allowing the word to hang in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Sometimes, I continued, my gaze fixed on my son, a father has to let go. Even when it hurts. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Sarah actually looked concerned. Daniel, however, beamed. He thought he'd won. He actually believed he'd pulled it off. I wish Daniel and Graves Industries all the best, I concluded, offering a weak, watery smile. I'll be focusing on other things. I turned and walked away, my shoulders still slumped, my head bowed. But inside, a fire raged. Operation Checkmate was now fully engaged. The victory party was held that evening at the Obsidian, the city's most exclusive rooftop bar. The air crackled with self-congratulatory energy. Champagne flowed freely. Daniel, surrounded by sycophants, held court like a conquering hero. I declined the invitation, of course. Instead, I sat alone in my study, the faint strains of jazz drifting from the record player. I nursed a glass of aged scotch, the peaty aroma a welcome distraction from the bile rising in my throat. A call came in from my lawyer, Jonathan. Everything's in place, Edward, he said, his voice calm and reassuring. The documents are filed. The court date is set. Excellent, I replied, a slow smile spreading across my face. Let the games begin. Through the window, I could see the lights of the city twinkling like fallen stars. Each one represented a piece of my empire, a testament to my hard work, my dedication, my vision. And soon, very soon, it would all be mine again. Daniel's party was only a prelude to his downfall. Let him enjoy his fleeting moment of triumph. The reckoning was coming. The reign of Daniel. The Dom Perignon flowed like the Niagara, cascading into crystal flutes held by models hired for the night. Daniel, perched atop a gilded bar in what used to be the employee cafeteria, now rebranded, the Gravity Lounge, raised his own glass. Confetti, shaped like dollar signs, rained down. To Graves Industries. To the future. To me, he slurred, his words thick with champagne and self-importance. The remnants of his trust fund days clung to him like cheap cologne. I watched it all unfold on the security feed from my study, a grim satisfaction curdling in my stomach. Operation Checkmate was proceeding beautifully. Daniel was playing his part to perfection, the reckless, entitled fool I needed him to be. The first few weeks had been a whirlwind of extravagant spending. Corporate jets were reupholstered in Italian leather, the executive dining room transformed into a sushi bar staffed by Michelin-starred chefs. He even commissioned a life-sized ice sculpture of himself for the company lobby. Each indulgence was a nail in his coffin, a debt he didn't realize he was accruing. Emily Carter, bless her optimistic heart, tried to reason with him. I saw her on the feed, her face etched with worry as she stood before his makeshift throne. Emily had been with Graves Industries for 5 years, a bright spark in the marketing department, full of fresh ideas and genuine enthusiasm. She genuinely believed in what we did. Daniel, with all due respect, she began, her voice barely audible above the thumping music, the marketing budget is stretched thin as it is. We can't afford another celebrity endorsement, especially not at that price. Daniel waved a dismissive hand, the diamond-encrusted watch I'd gifted him on his graduation glinting under the disco lights. Relax, Emily. We're Graves Industries now. We need to make a splash. Think big. Think, viral. He punctuated his pronouncements with air quotes and a wink that made my skin crawl. I saw Emily's shoulders slump. The light in her eyes dimmed. She knew, even if she didn't want to admit it, that the company she loved was being systematically dismantled. The exodus started subtly. First, it was Martha from accounting, a stalwart who'd handled the books for over 20 years. She simply handed in her resignation, citing personal reasons. But I knew Martha. Loyalty was her middle name. Daniel's antics were driving her away. Then came Old Man Fitzwilliam, head of research and development. A quiet genius who held more patents than anyone in the company. He tried to implement a new, cost-effective energy solution, a project I'd been personally invested in. Daniel, however, dismissed it as boring and not flashy enough. Fitzwilliam packed his boxes and left without a word. Each departure was a blow, a piece of the company's soul chipped away. The remaining employees walked around with haunted expressions, whispering in hushed tones about the impending doom. The morale plummeted faster than the stock price. Which, of course, was precisely the point. Daniel, oblivious to the chaos he was creating, continued his reign of terror. He replaced board members with his college buddies, inexperienced and sycophantic. He greenlit ridiculous projects, a self-cleaning coffee mug, a drone delivery service for dog biscuits, all destined to fail. He even tried to renegotiate contracts with our suppliers, demanding lower prices and longer payment terms. They, understandably, refused. Graves Industries' reputation, once impeccable, was now tarnished, dragging the company closer to the abyss. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking beneath me. The security feed flickered, showing Daniel taking another swig of champagne, laughing boisterously. He looked like a king on his throne, completely unaware that the foundations beneath him were crumbling. My phone buzzed. A text from my lawyer, Michael. Document 37B finalized. Ready to proceed. A slow smile spread across my face. The trap was set. The game was about to begin. The lawsuit. The study reeked of aged parchment and approaching reckoning. A downpour hammered the leaded panes, mirroring the tempest raging within me. Daniel's demolition of Graves Industries had been a slow burn these past weeks, each boneheaded maneuver another shovelful of dirt on his ambitions. Sarah, the sly prompter, had been there every step, her subtle cues guiding him toward the abyss. No more observation. Time to move. Marcus, I stated, my throat rough, a testament to sleepless nights. Ready the files. All of them. We're filing suit. Marcus Cole, the attorney, possessed a mind as keen as his ethical compass was true. He simply nodded, having anticipated this moment. He'd meticulously prepared the ground, constructing the legal snare about to snap shut. The ensuing days dissolved into a haze of depositions, sworn statements, and the constant whisper of legal documents. Marcus toiled relentlessly, his brow a roadmap of concentration as he forged an impenetrable case, one no high-priced lawyer could dismantle. The suppressed clauses, the doctored ledgers, the flagrant abuse of corporate resources, all exposed, presented with stark, undeniable precision. Watching Marcus work brought a quiet sense of satisfaction. He was a pit bull in chambers, tenacious and unwavering. Daniel wouldn't escape his grasp, nor would Sarah slip through the net. The summons arrived Tuesday. I didn't witness the event, but Marcus later recounted it with grim pleasure. Daniel, poolside at his nouveau riche mansion, bankrolled, naturally, by pilfered funds, had visibly paled as the server presented the weighty envelope. Sarah, sunning beside him in a designer bikini, wore concealing shades, but Marcus swore he detected a tremor of fear behind them. The legal action alleged fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and gross malfeasance. It itemized Daniel's profligate spending, his disregard for critical ventures, and his calculated estrangement of essential personnel. It accused Sarah of collusion, of manipulating Daniel for personal enrichment. It demanded the reimbursement of all diverted capital, the annulment of the acquisition agreement, and the complete restitution of Graves Industries to its rightful inheritor, me. That evening, the phone buzzed. It was Daniel. "Dad," he stammered, his voice uncharacteristically small. "What is this?" "This, litigation. Consider it an object lesson, Daniel," I replied, my voice flat, devoid of warmth. "A lesson in fealty. A lesson in deference. And, above all, a lesson in the dire rewards of avarice. I severed the connection before he could formulate a reply. The storm had passed, and a thread of moon pierced the clouds, bathing the chamber in a spectral glow. Operation Checkmate had entered its concluding stage. The board was arraigned. The players were poised. And the king faced his reckoning. The courtroom drama. The courtroom atmosphere was a heavy cloak, thick with anticipation, each breath a reminder of the stakes. Showtime. Judge Thompson, a woman with an arctic gaze, surveyed the scene, her expression unreadable. The rap of her gavel echoed like a gunshot, instantly silencing the hushed murmurs. "All rise," the bailiff's baritone commanded, his voice filling the space. I remained seated, a small act of defiance, a silent challenge they were sure to interpret as weakness. "Let them." Across the room, Marcus stood, a commanding figure in his bespoke suit, ready to deliver his opening salvo. "Your Honor," he began, his voice a honed blade, "we are here today to expose a conspiracy, a brazen act of deception perpetrated by the defendants, Daniel Graves and Sarah Jenkins, against my client, Edward Graves. We will demonstrate how they wrested control of Graves Industries through calculated deceit, manipulative tactics, and the deliberate corruption of vital contracts." His words landed with precision. Beside him, Daniel shifted uneasily, attempting eye contact, perhaps a last-ditch appeal to our shared past, but I remained a stone. Sarah, however, avoided my gaze entirely, her complexion ashen, her hands clenched white-knuckled in her lap. Daniel's counsel, a shark of a lawyer named Mr. Harding, rose to his feet. He portrayed Daniel as a young visionary, a courageous leader who'd stepped in to rescue a failing enterprise. My claims, he sneered, were simply the embittered pronouncements of a man unwilling to let go. Then came the moment. Sarah was sworn in, her voice trembling as she promised to tell the truth, but her body told a different story. Marcus approached her, his movements purposeful, his gaze laser-focused. "Ms. Jenkins," he began, his tone deceptively mild, "you were, until recently, the chief financial officer of Graves Industries, is that correct?" "Yes," she whispered, the sound barely audible. Marcus proceeded with his line of questioning, carefully assembling his case, exposing the irregularities in the accounts, the suspect transactions, the outright falsehoods. Then, the bombshell. "Ms. Jenkins," he stated, his voice now edged with steel, "did you, at the urging of Mr. Daniel Graves, alter critical clauses in the contractual agreements regarding the transfer of power within Graves Industries?" Sarah hesitated, her eyes flitting nervously between Daniel and Marcus. The silence was a suffocating weight. Finally, her voice broke. "Yes," she confessed, the word almost swallowed by the vastness of the room. "But I didn't know what else to do. Daniel," he threatened me. Daniel's facade crumbled. "Sarah." "What are you saying?" he hissed, but Judge Thompson silenced him with a sharp crack of her gavel. "Mr. Graves, I will not tolerate outbursts in my courtroom. One further disruption, and you will be held in contempt." Marcus continued his examination, drawing forth every damning detail. She recounted how Daniel had pressured her, promising her security, manipulating her into betraying me. She revealed the existence of a clandestine account, funded by company assets, used to settle personal debts and finance extravagant parties. The only sound was Sarah's quiet, fractured testimony. The decisive strike was at hand. Marcus approached the bench, a stack of documents in his grip. "Your Honor," he declared, "we present the original contracts, those signed by Mr. Graves before the alterations. Forensic analysis confirms the digital tampering and reveals the original clauses that unequivocally state Mr. Graves retains ultimate authority over all major financial decisions, regardless of his official position." He meticulously presented the evidence, a mosaic of deceit. The altered clauses were highlighted, the original text stark beneath the forgeries. Judge Thompson scrutinized the documents, her face an impassive mask. Then, she turned to Daniel, her eyes like glacial shards. "Mr. Graves," she stated, her voice devoid of warmth, "Do you refute these allegations?" Daniel stammered, his face reddening. I believed I was acting in the best interests of the company," he mumbled, his voice lacking conviction. Judge Thompson's gavel fell with finality, the sound reverberating through the tense atmosphere. "The court rules in favor of the plaintiff, Edward Graves. The transfer of power within Graves Industries is hereby declared null and void. Mr. Daniel Graves and Ms. Sarah Jenkins are subject to further inquiry regarding charges of fraud and conspiracy. This court is adjourned." The room exploded in turmoil. Daniel surged toward Sarah, his face twisted with fury, but was quickly subdued by the bailiffs. Sarah wept uncontrollably, her face buried in her hands. As I watched the drama unfold, a cold sense of vindication washed over me. Operation Checkmate was proceeding flawlessly. The price of victory. Guilty. The word, delivered with the unyielding weight of Judge Thompson's gavel, reverberated through the courtroom, silencing the murmuring spectators. It wasn't a shout, just a firm pronouncement that sealed Daniel's fate. And in a strange way, mine too. I watched him. My son. His face, moments before flushed with a desperate hope, now drained of all color, resembling nothing so much as a shattered porcelain doll. His eyes, usually bright with ambition, were dull, unfocused. He didn't scream, didn't rage. He simply slumped in his chair, a marionette with its strings cut. Sarah, beside him, wept openly, her sobs echoing in the sudden quiet. I felt nothing. Or perhaps something akin to a dull ache, a phantom pain where pride used to reside. Marcus rose, ever the composed professional, accepting the judge's final instructions regarding the reinstatement of my ownership and the arrangements for the transfer of assets. He caught my eye, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher, pity? Respect? Crossing his face. The courtroom emptied slowly, the crowd a tide receding to reveal the wreckage left behind. Daniel remained seated, a statue of defeat. I could have walked away. I should have walked away. But I couldn't. Daniel, I said, my voice raspy, unused to being used with such raw emotion. He didn't look up. Go away, he mumbled, his voice thick with shame. I never wanted this, I said, the words feeling flimsy even to my own ears. He finally lifted his head, his eyes red-rimmed. Didn't you? Then why? You betrayed me, Daniel. You tried to steal everything I built, everything I wanted to leave to you. He scoffed, a weak, pathetic sound. You were going to retire. What did it matter who was in charge? It mattered that it was you, Daniel. That you did it this way. Behind my back. With lies and deceit. He turned away again, burying his face in his hands. I just wanted to prove myself, he whispered, the words barely audible. I left him there. The ride back to Graves Industries was surreal. The city lights blurred through the car window, each a tiny spark in the vast darkness, mirroring the fragmented pieces of my life. The building loomed before me, a steel and glass testament to my ambition, my life's work. But tonight, it felt cold, impersonal. The lobby was eerily quiet. A few skeleton staff remained, their faces a mixture of curiosity and apprehension as I walked through. I bypassed my old office, heading straight for the CEO's suite, Daniel's suite. It felt wrong, stepping inside. The air was thick with his scent, his choices in decor, his failed ambition. I walked to the window, looking out at the city sprawling beneath me. It was all mine again. Graves Industries. My legacy. But at what cost? The victory felt hollow. Tainted. Like a beautiful painting slashed with a knife. I had won, but in doing so, I had destroyed something precious. My son. I sat in the leather chair behind the massive desk, the weight of the company, the weight of my decision, pressing down on me. The city lights twinkled, indifferent to my pain. I had checkmated Daniel. But in doing so, I had checkmated myself. The empire was mine, but the heir was gone. And in the quiet solitude of that opulent office, surrounded by the spoils of my victory, I felt utterly, devastatingly alone. The phone rang, shattering the silence. I ignored it. Tonight, there was nothing anyone could say that would make this feel any less like a Pyrrhic victory. A second chance. The ghost of antiseptic still haunted my senses, a sterile echo of the courtroom and my joyless victory. Years separated me from the day the gavel fell, the memory of Daniel's shattered expression as the verdict reverberated. Graves Industries was mine again, yet the triumph tasted like ash. Then came the letter. A plain white rectangle against the rich gleam of my desk. No return address marred its surface, but the script, unmistakable. Father. A universe of penitence compressed into a single word. A request, not for argument or supplication, but for absolution. The gall of it, the sheer, breathtaking nerve. But beneath the banked fires of resentment, a long-dormant ache pulsed to life, a paternal yearning I thought had been surgically removed. I conceded. Not my territory, neither home nor office. Neutrality, a small park overlooking the cityscape, a concrete and steel testament to my creation, the one Daniel had tried to wrest away. He waited on a bench, posture defeated, eyes fixed on the distant blur of the horizon. Time had etched itself onto him, weathering his features. What had softened those sharp, ambitious lines? Regret? Resignation? He rose as I neared, and for a suspended moment, we simply stared, decades of fractured trust hanging between us like a palpable thing. The autumn wind, sharp and insistent, swirled fallen leaves around our feet, a poignant allegory for our broken bond. Father, he repeated, his voice raspy. Daniel. My response, clipped and devoid of warmth. He wouldn't glimpse the internal tempest. He swallowed, the movement pronounced. I understand if you can't forgive me. What I did was, beyond forgiveness. The words, though rote, carried a ring of authenticity in his gaze. Was such a transformation possible? Could the leopard truly shed its spots? Forgiveness is an indulgence, Daniel. One I'm unsure I can afford. I settled onto the bench, a calculated distance between us. He didn't push. He merely stood there, absorbing the implicit rejection. Silence descended, broken only by the whisper of leaves and the city's distant thrum. What do you want, Daniel? The question shattered the heavy quiet. Nothing, he countered, a shake of his head. Just, your forgiveness. Though I know I haven't earned it, I needed to ask. To try. I scrutinized him, searching for any lingering sign of deceit. The arrogance, the ingrained sense of entitlement that had defined him, seemed extinguished, replaced by an almost unnerving humility. There's an opening at the company, I heard myself say, the words a surprise. Entry level. Data processing. Far from glorious. He looked up sharply, surprise widening his eyes. You'd offer me a job. It's not a handout, Daniel. It's an opportunity. A chance to claw your way back. And should you squander it, you're finished. No further chances. He nodded, his Adam's apple working. Understood. Thank you. You won't be disappointed. I offered no reply. I couldn't manufacture reassurances, couldn't pretend that anything could be easily mended. But as I watched him depart, a tenuous spark of hope flickered within me. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the finality I had braced for, but a new, if fragile, dawn. A chance at redemption, not only for him, but perhaps even for myself. An opportunity to reclaim something from the wreckage of our relationship. Yet, seated alone, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the park in long, somber strokes, I couldn't dispel the sensation that the scars of betrayal would endure, a constant reminder of the price of ambition, and the enduring, double-edged sword of family. The mantle of Graves Industries settled, an even heavier burden than before. Thank you for spending your time with my story. Feel free to share your thoughts or reactions in the comments, I'd love to hear from you.